Hello everyone, this is Bill Griffin. Today I want to do something I hope you'll find unique and informative. I'm going to play clips of two candidates for the same office they're running for in Georgia State House of Representatives, and their district is in Lawrenceville, Georgia. But no matter where you live in the country, I think you'll find the same issues will apply in your state. So this will sort of compare the two candidates. I'm going to provide some commentary before I get into it. I want to say thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, share, comment if you like this content, and new episodes Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I have two candidates. I'm going to play clips. They're running for Georgia House District 101, which, as I said, is located in Lawrenceville, Georgia. One gentleman is Republican. His name is Zach Procter, Procter, and his Democrat opponent is Mr. Procter is Republican. Mr. Kennard, Greg Kennard, his last name is spelled Kennard, Greg, Gregg. So these two gentlemen are running for the same office, and I'm going to ask them, play clips of them answering questions, and then provide some commentary. I'll start with the subject of, and by the way, this was fairly lengthy. I did interviews with both of these gentlemen, so the clips will come from the interviews that I did with them. But this is a fairly lengthy process, I suppose you'd say, so I'm breaking this into two parts. So this episode will have two parts. So this is Mr. Procter, and if you find that if you question whether I've taken anything out of context, please go back and check the full-length interviews that both are unedited. So this is Mr. Procter on the subject of school choice.
Portion of what that allotment would normally be. Competition has proven itself to be a good thing in every industry that we see it in. But the two industries we seem to think that it isn't going to work are education and healthcare. And I don't know why we've decided that those two, that it wouldn't work. If we have parents having the ability to take those funds and put them towards the school of their choice, whether that be homeschool, public school, or private school, we'll see more competition. We'll see schools striving to make sure that they're providing the best service possible to attract those kids. And we'll probably see pop-ups of new private schools to give more options.
And now this is Mr. Kennard on the same subject. Another topic. Are you in favor of the concept of school choice K through 12?
No, I think public education should be funded by taxpayer money, and that's what it goes to. 95% of all of our children in the state attend a public school. And I am not in favor of $1 being wrenched away from public school.
I'm not sure how it gets taken away if it's just a partial amount that would have been spent on the child anyway. Well, how is that a reduction?
It's a slippery slope, and it's just I'm hard and fast on that. Taxpayer money, school tax goes to public school. Full stop.
Now, this is Mr. Procter on the resistance that he sees to school choice. And by resistance, I mean, what are the political arguments against school choice, and what are those opponents to school choice thinking of? What's the resistance to school choice?
The resistance to school choice, I think, are people who are just very wedded to the way things have been done for decades. They see the public school system as being one where the government has a responsibility to educate children, and they have a mandate to determine how those kids are educated. And they don't want to see a wide variety in that. They want to see everyone educated exactly the same. They want a one-size-fits-all education system. And I just don't think that that works.
I think Mr. Procter is correct on this. For better or worse, government teaches students K through 12 public schools, what they want the government, what they want the students to learn. Parental involvement, in many cases, it doesn't matter. Their parents have no choice. They have to send their kids to the public school, so they don't or won't get involved to the extent that they could if they had a choice. There's also the idea that parents do, when the parents are involved, the students fare better. And in giant public school systems, for example, Gwinnett County, Georgia, it's a big budget, a lot, thousands upon thousands of employees, 180,000 students, something like that. So there's no, for many parents, there's no reason to get involved because they feel as if they have no say in the matter. But when they do get involved, the students fare better. Mr. Kennard, you heard what he said. He's absolutely opposed to the concept of school choice. This is Mr. Kennard discussing or answering the question, should the discussion of sexual orientation be prohibited by the state legislature across Georgia, K through 3, up till 10 years old? It's appropriate that teachers discuss the topic of sexual orientation with children under the age of 10.
I do. I think, it has to be contextualized. I do think it has to be treated with respect and dignity, but I don't think LGBTQ families should be discriminated against because of their orientation or the way that their family is assembled and constructed. No more than a traditional heterosexual family. We don't shy away from certain conversations at that age range. Neither should, I think, the other kinds of families, non-traditional families, should be discriminated against with similarly appropriate conversations.
And this is Mr. Kennard a little later in the interview.
We're not talking about sex education here. We're talking about the construction of families. We're not, nobody's teaching 10-year-old kids and younger. We haven't gotten to that part of the health curriculum. We're talking about sex education. Yeah, I don't think it's anything that there's a deliberate action to interject. But what I'm saying is, in the same way we would use the traditional family model to talk about anything that's coming up at that age level, I don't think it should be hands off talking about any other kind of family model.
And before I get to Mr. Proctor's thoughts on the same subject, I'd just like to say, I think Mr. Kennard is being very naive about this, in that, yes, teachers can take, according to him, it's okay to discuss sexual orientation, but it has to be done a certain way. And they will take this and they will turn this into something different. You see this obviously occurring across the country. There's plenty of evidence for this, and I've talked about it on other episodes. Children ask questions. They're going to ask a question, a question, a question, a question. That's what they do, and that's what they should do. And this is a subject that I think should be left to the parents in terms of how different families are constructed or different living situations. I have that is just not a place for a discussion of these sorts of things in public school. And many parents are adamantly opposed to this, don't want their children to have any part of it. This is Mr. Proctor's views on the same subject.
The left seems to forget that there are things that we have all agreed on for many, many years that you do not discuss with young children. We don't show them pornographic material. We don't show them graphically violent material. We don't change that just because it suddenly becomes a fad in social circles. I don't think that we should be making broad laws about what you can and cannot do or say in a school district, especially on a state and definitely not a national.
So the question of whether the state of Georgia should codify into law a prohibition by schools, teachers to discuss the topic of sexual orientation to children under the age of 10. Mr. Proctor does not support this. This is my interpretation of his words in the interview. You can go back and check. Is that he does not support such a thing, but he doesn't think it's a good idea for the state to legislate against school districts teach this. So if you live in Fulton County, it's okay for them to pass a law to prohibit the discussion of this, but it's not up to the state. According to Mr. Proctor, one county could say it's okay. Another county could say it's okay. Mr. Kennard, on the other hand, does not think that that this should be allowed in any county. That was my interpretation, to prohibit, that no county should prohibit the discussion of sexual orientation because it's discriminatory. I don't agree with Mr. Kennard about this. I don't understand why a teacher would need to discuss how families are constructed in different living situations. It is none of their business. It's up to the parents to have these conversations. It is not the government's responsibility to raise children, and it's to the parents. And that's, I think, what most parents believe, and it should be respected. Mr. Kennard makes a point that the state of Georgia they put a lot of money into the public school systems across the state, and that they should be able to legislate on this. So in his mind, they should legislate to allow, they shouldn't interfere, they should allow the subject of sexual orientation. This is my interpretation. In public schools, while applying the same logic, you could codify a prohibition against it, which Mr. Proctor is now for. So that's the position of the two gentlemen as I understand them. This is Mr. Kennard on the question of whether the state of Georgia, or federal government, I suppose, as well, forgive student loan debt.
I don't know that I'm in favor of just carte blanche universal removal of all student loan debt. I have some concerns of what that may do to increase and keep going our inflation. That said, I think there's some public service occupations that are worthy of our consideration. I think of teachers, educators in our public school service, especially those who are teaching in our more challenging areas, Title I schools. I think if they teach there for some tenure, maybe 5 years or so, I think that should be a consideration.
So Mr. Kennard is not adamant that certain debt should be forgiven, but he does say it's worthy of consideration in certain circumstances, and you heard his words on that. I find it ironic that the federal government and folks on the left are perfectly fine. The federal government has subsidized higher education, post-high school education, through loans and grants, and now Joe Biden is talking about billions and billions of dollars to forgive some student loan debt. And I think it's ironic that it's okay to do that, but you go to whatever school you want to go to, it doesn't matter. You get the government subsidizes, but K through 12 you don't. So this is Mr. Proctor's observations about that. Something out of it. Do you find it ironic that the same people that are so against school choice for public schools are perfectly fine with the government subsidizing college tuition, and there's no limitation on where you would go to college?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that the reason you see that is because they've already won the battle when it comes to universities. Universities have largely become left-wing indoctrination centers. So they are perfectly happy with subsidizing sending people there because they know what they're going to be taught and they agree with it. When it comes to homeschooling, when it comes to private schools, well, they don't know what are going to be taught there. And so they want to make sure that they get their ideology implanted in the minds of children, which they know they can do in college, but they don't know that they can do it if you're homeschooling or sending your kids to a charter school or a private school.
I agree with Mr. Proctor about this. And to be fair, Mr. Kennard isn't far left on this. 85% of Democrats responded in an advisory question on the primary ballot that they supported forgiving all student debt. That's the way the question was worded. So that's their comments on the subject of public education, K through 12 in Georgia, and also higher education. The interesting thing between these two candidates is that when you contrast them, Mr. Kennard, I don't describe as very far left. I didn't think he's a socialist or anything like that. But he does believe in a strong central government. In the next episode, his discussion of taxes, for example, is pretty, he doesn't advocate changing the tax structure. But he believes in the hand of government, and Mr. Proctor is quite opposite on that. I favor Mr. Proctor, and I would hope you'd vote for him over Mr. Kennard. Mr. Kennard is we had a very cordial conversation. I don't at all hold any ill will against him for his political positions, but I don't agree with them. And I will, in the second episode, go through, it'll be quite lengthier, and go through a wide array of topics. This episode mainly dealt with education, but we talked about a lot of things with both candidates. So I hope you'll watch that second part of this episode. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. As I said, if you like this content, please subscribe, like, share, comment. Thank you.